Hi, welcome to this episode of Expat Stories series. I'm Sarah, a financial consultant in Germany, and in this episode, I'm talking with Hamza, a psychologist from Morocco. We talked about different things from homesickness, integration, and the sense of belonging. So stay tuned. So, hi, Hasnaa. It's so nice to see you today. I was really looking forward to our conversation because you're coming from a special background and also like about the psychology. I know it's a lot when it comes to the expats. But before we go into the details, I would love to know a little bit about yourself. Where are you from and what actually brought you to Germany?
Great. So thank you so much for having me today. So a little bit about me. I'm Hasnaa. I'm originally from Morocco, and initially I came to Germany to pursue my higher education. Um, Notably in psychology, I did my bachelor's in Bremen, and then I continued and did my master's in Berlin. And after that, I did a Weiterbildung in psychological counseling. So basically, this is what initially brought me to Germany. I think Germany is known for very good education. And so that's what drew me in the beginning.
Amazing. So, as both of a psychologist and an expat, what was like your biggest culture shock when you arrived here?
Um, that's a great question. I think the biggest culture shock, I mean, first of all, is language. I think that's the most obvious one. You know, when you go into a supermarket and you don't really know how to like get your groceries and things like this, and people, at least my experience in the beginning was that people weren't very accommodating. Coming from a culture like Morocco, we speak a lot of different languages, and people always battle to try to understand you, even with like body language and stuff like this. So here was very different.
And what is like a cultural shock a real psychological phenomenon as well? And what do you think that aspect in the cultural shock that people often overlook as an expat?
Hmm. I definitely think it's definitely a psychological phenomenon that a lot of people face. Because we grow up with a certain culture. We grow up with a certain upbringing, with certain value systems, and when you're confronted with a different culture with a different value system, then those two clash. And there's a lot of confusion, I think, that happens. A lot of questions that are asked as to why do people act this way or why do people behave this way. And I think that's like one of the hardest parts of the culture shock. So it's like really trying to understand a different mechanism from what you've always been taught. Yeah, I definitely think that a lot of expats initially have to learn to adapt to this new culture that they've decided to put themselves in. Um, and it's definitely a journey. I think it definitely teaches us a lot of resilience as well, because you have to learn to bounce back. You have to learn to adapt to different people and to different customs. And it also teaches us to be patient. I think that's one of the biggest things is patience, because you have to really be curious about another culture and like learn to accept it while also maintaining your own if you choose to do that.
You think what's like the actual reason that some people adapt so quickly while other maybe never adapt?
I think a big part of it is like the support system. I think both like the support system that you have back home and the support system that you have to build from scratch coming to a different country. So if you're surrounded by people that support you, that help you, that make you feel like you belong, I think the process is a lot easier and you feel a lot more in place. You feel like you fit in, right? I think that's a big part of it. People that isolate themselves or have a harder time making human connections, I think have a harder time integrating into a new culture.
Yeah, and by like integrating to the new culture and like making friend, you mean like making friend from different culture or from like our own? Because I see that
Yeah.
it's so common among expats, and when we come to Germany, it's very hard to make friend with Germans, maybe because of the cultural background or differences. I still don't know why, but a lot of expats find their community within like their own culture. Like for example, for us, we have friends, a lot of friends within the Iranian people, but that's also kind of isolate us.
Absolutely.
In some terms, that it kind of prevent the actual integration. And by the way, I would love to know what's your definition of integration, because there's a lot of different definitions out there. And I know that, at least from my own perspective, I don't like to lose like my own culture or put it behind, but I would like to have an integration in a way that I actually understand people, um, not being forced to, following a specific path or so.
Yeah, I think you pointed out very good points. What is the definition of integration? Um, for me, integration is like you said, you're not losing your culture. You shouldn't lose your culture or your identity in order to fit into a new culture. And I think that's like a big misconception that people have, that, oh, they need to let go of everything that they believed in order to fit into a new community. And I think in the process, you lose yourself doing that. And I think that causes more problems. I think you need to be proud of where you come from, be proud of your upbringing and who you are as a person. Integrating for me is more so of trying to understand another person or another community or the people around you, how things work, how the systems work. And part of it is also like the outside of the people, we're also talking about the administrative process, the educational process, and the educational systems, and all those things that make your life here a lot easier if you try to understand how things work and try to put the opportunities in your basket in order to for you to succeed, right? So for me, integration is really about that. It's really about being curious, about wanting to know how different things work, and being comfortable also asking for help, and being comfortable being yourself within people that are completely different from you, and that's okay.
Exactly, exactly. So you think it's like, how should be the process of finding the friend from the different culture? Is it like really needed for the integration process to have, for example, in Germany, a German friend, or it's okay just to try outside and like speak the language? Like what's the best form?
I don't think there's a best form. I think each person, I think human connection is like a magnetic thing, It's like something that draws you in. And it might not be somebody from your specific culture, but it might be somebody from a similar culture to yours that reminds you maybe of home. And the beauty of it is that you don't need one connection. You can make many connections that are meaningful to you in a very different way. And so I think the best advice or tip would be to try things out. You're not losing anything by trying and talking and socializing to people. I think innately we're very social beings, and we need human connection in order to survive, at least psychologically speaking. So trying it out, putting yourself out there, um, putting yourself outside the comfort zone, I think is like a big thing. Whether it's like making friends and trying to integrate, or professionally speaking as well, when you put yourself outside of the comfort zone, even though it feels extremely uncomfortable, it feels very scary, it's the way that you'll grow. It's the way that you'll grow those meaningful human connections. It's the way that you'll grow in different opportunities. It's the way that you'll grow professionally as well. So that's how I see it.
I think it's very important. And the thing you mentioned about the sense of belonging, I also see a lot. I haven't been in Germany for 10 years or so, but I know a lot of people that are here that say that, um, I migrated for so long that I don't feel the sense of belonging to my own country, and I don't feel belonging to this place, like the Germany as well, for example. And they kind of lose their sense of belonging to a specific places. Is it because they went to the wrong direction, or is it something that eventually everyone gets to this point?
I think that's a great question. I think part of the process of stepping out of the comfort, because I think all difficult life transitions is stepping out of the comfort zone at the end of the day, whether we want to see it that way or not, because it's something new. It's something that is uncertain. It's something that's unknown. So within this process, I think there's a lot of doubt that comes in. I think we tend to ask ourselves whether we're making the right decision, whether things will work out, whether um, whether this is the right path for you at the end of the day, right? And this sense of belonging, I think a lot of people have this lack of sense of belonging because, first of all, I see people as having their own values, right? But then coming from a collectivistic community, we also have our family values and our societal values. And when we have like all these three systems to consider, and then we're put into a completely new value system, for example, one that's like from an individualistic community, it becomes very conflicting because you don't want to disappoint your family, you don't want to disappoint your society, but you also want to fully engage into this new life that you're brought in. And in a way, it can also be an escape for some people. An escape from certain things maybe that didn't align with how they viewed their life. And maybe Germany brought them a sense of alignment in the way that they want to live their life. And so they chose to let go of those parts that didn't feel right for them anymore. But it's still a very difficult thing to do because you still have this sense of that was a part of me. And that maybe reflects my culture, maybe that reflects my family, maybe that reflects like people I love, but I chose to put it to the side in order to live a more fulfilling life for me right now.
So is it like okay to not have a sense of belonging to any place anymore, or it's something that people should, for example, work to feel that they belong to somewhere at the end?
People like have a drive to want to belong somewhere, and it's not necessarily where they're coming from. It can be like in a new place. And I think that's why we always seek out like people that can relate to us, not necessarily from the same culture, but that have the same vision of, maybe they have the same lifestyles as us, maybe they have the same hobbies as us, maybe they have the same profession as us. So I think humans definitely seek a sense of belonging, and they need it in order to feel a certain type of security and safety. Um, but the part that gets confusing is when you don't even know yourself, that you don't know where you belong in the first place.
Yeah, so it could be not about the place, but about the people that we're surrounded with and like lack of knowledge about ourselves at the first place.
Exactly, yeah.
Amazing. We also have like a definition of homesick. So I would love to know from your perspective of when we can actually see that we're homesick or we're just unhappy with the life abroad.
I think that's a great question, and I think there's a big distinction between like being homesick and being unhappy. I think homesickness is a very natural thing to feel. It's something that's very valid, because those, like the people that you left behind, like they're people that you love, that you carry, like that you hold close to your heart. And outside of the people, it's also the food, it's also the humor, it's also cultural events or cultural celebrations that you kind of leave behind. So there is a part of you that I think at one point you will miss, and I think that's completely natural. I think the moment you feel like things are affecting your daily life, where you can't go to work anymore, you can't go to school anymore, you don't want to go meet friends, you don't want to advance, or you don't want to live your life, I think that's when it should be a time to be concerned about your state, your state when it comes to, let's say, your happiness living in a different country, especially if it involves like experiences that have been unpleasant, or things that have made you maybe reflect that maybe this is not the right place for you. But I think homesickness in general is a very natural feeling to have.
Yeah, so probably the loneliness could also be a reason that people feel homesick more than usual, and they think that maybe they're generally unhappy with the life abroad or so. But what for you, what was like the hardest challenge that you experienced since you moved in Germany, and how you actually overcame it?
I think the biggest challenge coming to Germany was coming and getting a lot of independence. Uh, I come from a family that was very present. I'm very thankful for it. They were there whenever I needed anything. Um, and so coming to Germany, I had to figure out a lot of things on my own. So I've made a lot of mistakes, mistakes in terms of like, things that have maybe made the process a bit longer. And so I would say I think that was the hardest part, trying to figure out everything on my own. But I think it's also like the best part, because with every bump, I think those bumps and those mistakes are what got me closer to where I'm at today. And without having made those mistakes, I wouldn't have learned how to overcome them in the first place. Um, and so yeah, I think, but like when I'm talking about mistakes, it's like more of like administrative stress that would happen, bureaucratic systems that I didn't really understand how things worked. Um, but the more you confront these situations, the more you're able to handle them better in the future, and the less scary they get overall.
Yeah, exactly. And if you would like to tell like the expats who just came to Germany or are new here, like the habits, the most important habits that they have to like exercise and try to improve in themselves in order to increase their mental well-being, because it's something that not everyone talks about and it's underestimates a lot. So what do you think is like the most important ones?
I think the most important habits to adopt is to put yourself out there. And I mean, like doing something that trying new things. I think trying new things is a really good way to discover yourself, who you are, and also a great way to meet people. So like for example, something that's like getting popular in Berlin right now is like the beach volleyball because it's summer. I would say go and try beach volleyball. There you'll meet a lot of new people and be able to talk to them and like do a different activity that you might end up enjoying, and like maybe you'll join a club, and then you'll be part of a team. So I would say definitely putting yourself out there and doing like social activities, that whether it's like something new or something you already know that you enjoyed, but like really like putting in the effort to do something outside of work or outside of studies. Because even if you came with the goal of, okay, I came here to study, there's a lot that can happen outside of studying, and there's a lot that can happen outside of work as well.
So for you, was there a moment that you say like, I gave up, I just can't do it anymore? I would love to go back to my country and like have a peace of mind.
Interestingly, when I first came to Germany, I wasn't thinking of I want to go back home. I was like fully embarked in the journey. I was ready for what what life had to offer. But recently, I went back home, and things changed for me. Then it's not that Germany did something that made me realize that I don't want to stay in Germany long term, or that I saw myself in Germany. But it's more of like when I went back home and I saw how life was there. That made me realize that, okay, I see myself building a life in Morocco as well. So ideally, I would love to like have one foot in Morocco, one foot in Germany. Um, but I would be okay and content with the idea of going home as well. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very tricky part because I also come from a culture which is very warm, very different from,
Yeah.
I mean, you know how the Middle East is. And then um although there are a lot of challenges, but still it feels like home is different, you know. And maybe not for everyone to migrate and like stay so along from the family, so far from the family, like forever in a very long period of time. And that's the point I think a lot of people realize, because when we at the first place, when we migrate, we want to look for the better opportunities to actually grow, to experience more. And when we get into the point that we actually experience everything, at first it's not as easy as we imagined. And then you figure out, even though home is not a perfect place to live, maybe, um, but still different. And some people, you know, it's important for people, so when they realize that, I mean, from my own perspective, don't be too hard on themselves to stay on the wrong path for like a very long period if they see that, okay, they're happier back home, or they don't see a future here, because the culture is very different. And even though you try to integrate as hard as you want, at the end it's different, you know. For if you want to have
Absolutely.
the same experience as you had in the home, the same, like, it's not just about the food but the family, the warmth, and the everything. It's like very different. I think it's very harder for people who are coming from these cultures to maybe Europe in general, not only Germany. uh, but that's very important part that you mentioned. If you would like to like recommend a book that you think that every expat should read, what would it be, and also why?
I haven't read a book in a while. I mostly listen to uh, Esther Perel's podcasts at the moment. But if I had to recommend a book, there's this book that a friend recommended me that I thought it was extremely interesting, and I think that it can bring up a lot of conversations. It's called The Denial of Death. And I think that this book is an extremely interesting book because it talks about leaving an impact in this world, and like basically how meaning is a driver. Uh, like you don't want to die without leaving a meaning, and a meaning or an impact can mean a lot of different things for different people. It can be having a family and passing on your name down generations. It can be building a business. It can be doing something that is humanitarian. um, so in a way it's talking about, you know, your purpose in life, and I think that's something that resonates with a lot of people. They try to figure out what their purpose in life is. And I think it also relates well to expats, because a lot of expats that are moving to a different country for different opportunities, or because maybe they're intrigued about a different culture and they want to explore something new. um, they ask this question of, what is my purpose right now? What is my purpose in this country, and what can I bring maybe to my country, if that's something that they're thinking about. And in a way, I think this also adds a lot of pressure, because you mentioned also at one point you mentioned that coming to a different country, and I really liked when you said that. You said that if you're unhappy in the path that you're in, you don't have to stick to it because you feel forced that you have to. Because I think expats, you know, have this also pressure that I have a privilege of being in this country. I have a privilege of having opportunities that other people don't. And so I need to stick to it, even if that makes me unhappy. Um, but in reality, I think you can have so many different opportunities and also be fulfilled in life, and that there is no one timeline for a person. I think everyone has their own timeline and everyone has their own meaning of what it is to have a meaningful life. And so I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind.
Amazing. Yeah, exactly. But Hans, I really enjoyed our conversation. I just want to have like one last question from you, because I also know that a lot of people may look into the like the psychological education, like being a psychology student, or how is the working here as an expat, because probably the target audience is quite different. What would you like to tell them about this?
I would like to say, first of all, that psychology is a very broad subject. So it's definitely a journey, because you can get into business psychology, you can get into organizational psychology, you can get into clinical psychology. So also understanding what you want. If it is that you want to take a clinical route and like see clients and have sessions, counseling sessions or therapy sessions, as an expat, I would say that you do have an edge. You probably speak multiple different languages. You have a cultural awareness that, um, for example, German psychologists won't be able to to understand a person from a certain cultural background as much as you would. And so, like, for example, a client doesn't have to tell you about the ins and outs of their culture and their society and the family dynamics. You understand it in a way and you can relate to it in a way. And so I definitely think that does put you on an edge, and I think there's a lack of mental health support when it comes to internationals, English speaking individuals, or different languages, whether it's Arabic, Farsi, French, and other African languages, for example, as well. So when you find someone that can give you that type of support, I think it's always amazing, um, and always something that that you're not below anyone because you're an expat. I think you should look at it as a strength, empower yourself, um, because I think everyone has like a different has values that they bring into their professional career or into their personal life as well. So it's more about highlighting and letting those values and those qualities shine.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's very important, specifically in your sector, because I mean, if I wanted to go to a psychologist and tell like about my whole culture and everything and happens within the last year only, that would be a pure cultural shock for the psychologist
Yeah.
at first. So yeah, I think it's also very it's a good feeling for the person who's seeking for the psychologist as well, to have someone who understands them. It was really nice, Hansa, to speaking with you. I really enjoyed the conversation. I'm sure, like the audience would also love the conversation. And thank you for joining us. I really like to have more conversation with you in future. Probably we can meet again and have an episode in future again.
I would absolutely love that. Thank you so much, Sarah, for having me today. I also enjoyed our conversation, and yeah, thank you so much.